this earth way too soon. And I think that the bipartisan support that you saw in the House, I am really hopeful will carry on into the Senate, and we're already seeing good traction from our Senate colleagues interested in coming on board.
Senator Fetterman, there are
Good evening, everyone. Could you hear me well? Give me some thumbs up. Okay, sweet. I saw a hand up. Awesome. Well, welcome back, everyone. Hope your holiday was great and the new year comes in with many great things to you and all your loved ones. So we are here, Public Safety Committee, with our first meeting for the new year, January 7th, 2025. We're gonna get started with some crime stats. I see we have some of our precincts here. Thank you for being here tonight. So we can start off with the 33rd precinct. What was yours? Sorry, we can't hear you.
742.
33rd, we gotta check your budget because the last month it was the same thing. What's going on with the IT department over there? Computer service over there.
No.
Okay, we're gonna let the 33rd precinct check. They're having some technical difficulties right now. So we'll give them a little chance. No. In the meantime, I'd like to pass it off to the Mahan District Attorney's Office that's here present with us tonight, Miss Jocelyn and Fernanda. Fernanda. Sorry. Welcome.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us in person tonight. Floor is
Thank
yours.
you. We came a long way to be here with you guys. So good evening, everyone. Happy New Year to all. Bring you greetings from the Honorable Alvin Bragg, your DA, and looking forward to happy, healthy, safe 2025 and working with CB12. We just have a few things to speak about. So as hopefully a lot of you know, January, there's a couple of things that we highlight during January and bring awareness. The first thing that we would like to talk about is that January is Stalking Awareness Month. Stalking is a very serious crime. It occurs on a daily basis. You know, and it's really it's a tough crime to police and also prosecute. But you know, the more that we speak about it and what it entails and how people can get help, you know, the more that we can educate our community, hopefully the safer many people will be. So stalking in a nutshell is really a pattern of repeated and unwanted attention, harassment, contact, or any other course of conduct directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear for their safety or the safety of others, or to suffer emotional distress. So similar to crimes of sexual violence and domestic violence, stalking is about power and control. It's all about one person trying to exercise power over another or control through this pattern of behaviors. Usually 2 or more incidents make a pattern, but that varies from state to state. So, you know, if someone lives out of state, we encourage them to be familiar with their state's laws about what stalking entails. And stalkers can use a variety of tactics, including but not limited to unwanted contact, including phone calls, texts, social media contact, unwanted gifts, showing up or approaching an individual or their family or friends, monitoring, surveillance, property damage, and of course, threats. Stalking is a crime in all 50 states. And some of the behaviors that make up stalking are criminal on their own, like property damage. But some of them are not so clear cut, such as someone texting you excessively. It's not a crime, but it is a pattern, and victims are encouraged to document and report this type of behavior. Other key points to keep in mind in terms of stalking is that the majority of stalking victims are females, but males can be victims of stalking. However, people of all genders can be stalked. It is estimated that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men will experience stalking in their lifetime. So like I said, anyone can be a victim. And the majority of stalking victims are stalked by someone they know, a current or former intimate partner, acquaintance, or family member. So stalking by a stranger is relatively rare. It's usually someone that they know. And is usually typically directed at a specific person, which is the victim. However, stalkers often contact the victim's family, friends, coworkers, or anyone, in their immediate circle as part of their pattern of behavior. It's also important to note that stalking and harassment are similar and can overlap. And harassment may be part of a stalking pattern or behavior, of course, of contact. However, as we know, harassment is not an arrestable offense, it's a violation, where stalking is a crime and an arrestable offense. Generally, what distinguishes stalking and harassment is the element of fear. So stalking, there is the element of fear, and harassment is really annoying, bothersome and irritating, but the element of fear is not there, usually in harassment cases. So, if you believe you know of anyone who may be going through that type of crime, or, they're not sure what they can do, please feel free to send them our way. We're happy to sit down and speak with anyone. As you know, we work very closely with our law enforcement counterparts in the 3-4 and the 3-3, and happy to coordinate meeting with them as well, so that we can, sift through the evidence and see what we have in order to be able to put together a case and bring the charge of stalking. So please send them our way. And then the other thing that we are raising awareness on this month is human trafficking. So when we hear human trafficking, or at least I'll speak on the personal level, when I used to hear the term human trafficking, I always thought it was something that happened elsewhere in another country, overseas, not something that happens here. But human trafficking is something that happens all over the world, and certainly here in the United States and in New York City and Manhattan, of course. So human trafficking, for those who are not familiar, refers to a crime whereby traffickers exploit and profit at the expense of adults or children by compelling them to perform labor or engage in commercial sex. When a person younger than 18 is used to perform a commercial sexual act, it is a crime, regardless of whether there is any force or fraud or coercion involved, as opposed to commercial sex trafficking in an adult. So in the United States, we recognize two primary forms of trafficking, which is forced labor and sex trafficking. So forced labor, sometimes also refers to as labor trafficking, encompasses the range of activities involved when a person uses fraud, force, or coercion to exploit the labor or service of another person. Sex trafficking, as the word implies, encompasses the range of activities involved when a trafficker uses force, fraud, or coercion to compel another person to engage in commercial sex, or causes a child to engage in a commercial sex act. Key principles in terms of trafficking that we need to keep in mind is consent. Human trafficking can take place even if the victim initially consented to providing labor or services or a commercial sexual act. The analysis primarily focused on the trafficker's conduct and not that of the victim, which means that even if I agreed to work for Fernanda for free to pay off a debt to her, I am not a trafficker. I am the victim. I will remain the victim no matter what I consented. The person that is wrong is Fernanda if she, exploited me or coerced me into doing it. Likewise, in sex trafficking, an adult victim's initial willingness to engage in a commercial sexual act is not relevant, where a perpetrator subsequently uses force or fraud or coercion to continue to exploit the victim. In terms of child sex trafficking, we don't need any type of consent because, as we know, a child can never legally consent to any type of sexual act. Another thing that is important to note is when we hear trafficking, again, we usually think, oh, they have to be taken like from here out of state or whatever. And that is not true either. Neither US law or any international law requires that a trafficker or a victim move across a border for a human trafficking offense take place. Trafficking in persons is a crime of exploitation and coercion, not movement. So it doesn't matter where you are or how far you traveled. It can happen hundreds of miles away from home, or it could happen in the same neighborhood where you are from. Again, it does happen here. It's alive and well, sadly and unfortunately. But thankfully with our counterparts in NYPD, and our office's Special Victims Division, which includes our Human Trafficking Division, we're fighting hard every day to combat both of these, types of trafficking crime. Case in point, we had, a building super, who we just, convicted of labor trafficking for raping and coercing a woman for over a 6-year period. She was an immigrant, and he hired her initially to clean apartments in the building, and that turned into no pay, really just brutalizing this woman over a 6-year period, and her 6-year-old child. And the only reason that the authorities became aware of this, or we became aware of this, is because she developed breast cancer. So when she went to the hospital for treatment, she disclosed to a social worker. And even after disclosing, she was so afraid that she, said, please don't do anything. I'm not ready yet. So it took some time working with our office, working with the social workers, working with our Survivor Services Bureau, to be able to put systems in place where she felt safe enough to be able to leave. And what she would do is each time she had a doctor's appointment, she would take a few items of clothing each time until she was able to remove some of the belongings that she wanted to take with her. And then she said, I'm ready. The police moved in, he was arrested. And thankfully, this guy is off the street. He was convicted of 4 charges, amongst which are rape and labor trafficking. And, I'm praying that he does many, many years in prison for that. That didn't occur here. That occurred down in lower Manhattan. We also had a person who just pled guilty to drugging and raping a teenage girl for months, 14-year-old young lady. This guy, Michael Olson is his name, 56. He just pled guilty, like I said, but he, over a period of time, first coerced this young lady by giving her money for clothes, gift cards, taking her on trips, and that eventually led into him providing drugs for her to the point where she overdosed in a hotel room, and this is how that was put to an end. He thankfully called the police, EMS, 911. They showed up. They kind of put 2 and 2 together. This guy was arrested, and the investigation is still ongoing into other victims, but at the very least, he pled guilty to the charge of raping this 14-year-old girl, and again, like I said, the investigation is ongoing. But it does happen in our backyard, because we had a case here in the 34th precinct where the DA announced in December the indictment, 104-count child sex trafficking indictment of a person by the name of Matthew Halstead for sexually assaulting and trafficking a 16-year-old boy for approximately 5 months beginning in March 2024. This case is certainly ongoing, nowhere near trial yet. But again, another person who's been taken off the street. And the way that this case came to us is because he assaulted the 16-year-old, who in turn called the police. The police showed up, and then that's when everything unraveled and came to light. Aside from assaulting this young child, he's also accused of promoting and possessing child pornography and a whole slew of other things. So, while these things are hard to hear, I wanted to highlight them because they do happen here and they do happen in our backyard, and we all have to learn as much as we can about stalking and sex trafficking and labor trafficking, so that we can maybe be able to tell the signs when we see them, or be able to at least impart information on persons. And again, like I said before, if you suspect anyone might be going through it, Fernanda did bring some brochures are gonna be here in the community board, both in English and in Spanish on human trafficking. But I think the best and easiest thing to do would just be to send them our way or give them our number here in the office. And you know, they don't need to go forward if they don't want to. They don't need to do anything. They just need to know that we're here and that we're available and that there are resources that can be able to help them. And I don't know, Fernanda, if you want to say a few words. The summer internship, the high school internship is fully open.
Yes, the high school internship is fully open. I believe I've sent the flyer to the community board, but I will also I will bring some more here, and then also the gun violence prevention grants that are happening. They're still ongoing. We will still like to receive like applications for that. And the due date is, I believe, next Tuesday for that. But I will also send all of that information for the community board as well.
And that is all that we have from the DA's office today. If anyone has, are we taking questions?
Yeah.
Oh, if anyone has any questions, we're happy to answer.
Do
Just
we have any
I have a
questions?
clarification for
Yeah.
minutes. Did you say 104 counts?
Yes, 104 pound
That's
indictment.
wild.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. You could go on the website and read the whole.
Do we have any questions for the DA's office? Go ahead, Barbara. Oh, you're muted, by the way.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. A couple questions. First of all, I'd like to suggest, excellent that you have the brochures, but do you have some palm cards? Because especially if a woman is trying to break away, or occasionally a man, a brochure can be a little dangerous or threatening, but a palm card, need help, this is what we can do for you, two-sided, can be more easily concealed and, passed from person to person. So, a smaller, a little bit larger than because that's a little bit big, something at least, a quarter that size or a third that size, it can be, put easily in a jean pocket or more easily concealed, might be very helpful to someone who's, living in fear. So I just would suggest that. I wanted to mention also, because some people may not be as aware, not only stalking, but how it leads to violence and death. I think from ones who may be newer to the community or to this issue, we can all remember Gladys Burkhart, who was one of the first victims that raised this issue over 20 years ago, who was murdered on her wedding day by a former boyfriend, and we still hold a vigil and wedding dresses for her. And then even last May, a woman was murdered, Shirley Rodriguez, here in last May by her ex-boyfriend, was stalked and murdered by her. So in those, extreme cases, I wanted to ask, you have your Survivors Network services. Are you able to offer safe house before disaster happens? Are you able to remove a woman and give her safe house before something like that can accelerate her courage? That's my first question.
So thank you, Barbara. First of all, neither Shirley nor Gladys were stalked. Those were domestic violence cases. Neither of them were stalking cases, just to be clear. I want to clarify that.
Oh.
And anyone who comes forward looking for help can get help. If someone wants to leave, we can provide them, connect them with resources that can help them. We don't house anyone. We don't have housing ourselves. But if someone wants to leave, an abusive relationship, we can certainly connect them with services. They just need to come forward. So yes, people can leave, and we don't have to wait for a tragedy to happen. The issue is sometimes, sadly, victims don't think that tragedy is going to befall them. Nobody ever thinks someone they loved is going to kill them, because that's just the nature of human beings. You never think that. And unfortunately, that's why these crimes often are able to occur because someone feels safe where they are. They never think this person is gonna come back and hurt them. So all we can do is continue raising awareness, continue, emphasizing warning signs and hope that people are able to, come forward and ask for help, before it turns into a tragedy. She muted herself again.
I didn't. I certainly, as you mentioned, trafficking, labor trafficking and sex trafficking, are not necessarily across state lines. Now, I know the Mann Act has incredibly strong, consequences when you take someone across a state line. What are the consequences when it's like within the city? I know a girl had just recently been taken off a boat on Long Island who had been trafficked and so forth, or the cases that you mentioned. What are the consequences in jail terms or whatever for someone who's within New York State who is trafficked?
So it depends. Again, trafficking is a whole bunch of other crimes together. There has to be some elements met, so it depends. It depends what they're being charged with, aside from the trafficking, whether it be rape, assault, whatever it is. It depends. A lot of things depend on, we can ask for life in prison. A judge can, think otherwise. So yeah, it all depends, but it would be a felony. And felonies are crimes, as you know, punishable by a year or more in prison. So again, it depends what they're being charged with, what the other aggravating circumstances are.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Sweet, thank you. Do we have any other questions for our DA's office? See any of the gym? Thank you very much. for the
Yeah.
information. All right, so moving on to the 33rd precinct.
Hello, you hear me
Yeah.
now?
Yes.
All right, hi, it's 33. Wishing everybody well 2025. Hi, Jocelyn. Summary, you guys, quick numbers that we have here. As far as rapes, we are 0% changes from the 28 period. Robberies, we're down 33.3%. Felony assaults, we're up 5.3%. Burglaries, we're up 28.6%. Grand larcenies, we're up 8.7%. And grand larceny auto, which is from a vehicle, we're down 25%, with an overall total of we're down 1.4% in crimes in the 33rd precinct.
Do we have any questions for the 33rd precinct? See if I see it.
What was that last bit? How the percentage of it's down? Just
1.4.
1.4, thank you. It's a lot to keep track of. I'm also looking at it online, but I want to make sure.
Thank you.
So I do have a question on a situation that occurred in November where the elder was pushed from the window due to a home invasion, according to the news. So is there any updates on that situation and who was like behind the crime and pretty much what led to that situation and what has happened since?
All right, so I don't have any details on that because I'm not sure which one you're exactly talking about, but I can look into it and get back to you.
Okay, so it's the one that happened on 161 West 161st Street in November-ish, like November.
Nothing's coming to my mind right now.
Okay. So just make a note because I really want to circle back to that situation. Another incident was like literally just a few minutes ago on my way here, something was going on in the train. And it delayed some of the trains. According to some folks on the platform, they're saying that a homeless person took out a weapon. So is there any updates on that?
That will be Transit District 3 that handles that. I'm not sure what happened here today.
How could we distinguish transit officers versus NYPD officers, or is it similar?
It's the same. Transit District 3 is NYPD.
Okay,
But the same, our color brass, what precinct we come from.
Mhm. The only thing is transit districts cover the train stations underground and the precincts are above ground, right, Sarge?
Yes, that's correct, Joe.
So like if we wanna make a complaint or I don't know, look for some sort of information within the 33rd jurisdiction, we go to the 33rd precinct. Where would go for transit 3?
As far as like you getting a report,
Yeah.
you could go to any precinct, they'll give you the report.
So for the follow-up for this question, we would then go to the 33rd precinct.
Yes, we can give you the report number.
Okay, so we could follow up at the 33rd for anything regarding transit 3, just to be.
Well, if it's a crime that happened to you or you're the victim, I can look at my computer system and find you your report number.
All right, cool.
so just for clarification, transit 3 covers a specific amount of train stations within the 33rd precinct's jurisdiction?
And the 3-4 and the
And the
3-0
3-4.
and the 2-6.
Yeah, transit districts cover multiple precincts. Depends
So
how, sorry, go ahead.
what about the specific Washington Heights neighborhoods train stations, like 157, 168, 181st, 191st?
We're all
That's all transit
T3
3.
district.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just understand the jurisdiction. So we can, if something happens to us in the train station on 181st, which corresponds to the 34th precinct, we can still pick up that report on the 33rd, right?
So we don't. So sorry. Let me make it clarify. We can give you report number. We don't give reports out at the precinct.
Okay, got it. So let me rephrase the question.
Mhm.
If something happens to me on 181st and I want the report number, I can go to the 33rd precinct or the 34th precinct
Correct.
or the 25th. Like, okay, cool. All right, interesting. Thank you very much.
Got it.
And just so you know, Transit District 3 is located at 145 in St. Nicholas in the train station there. That's where
Okay.
their command
That's
is.
their main command.
Yeah.
All right,
And
thanks.
it also covers all the train stations in the community district, if I'm not mistaken. So Transit District 3 goes all the way up to Van Cortlandt Park on the one train. And as far south as 96th Street for both the 1A, C, B, those lines, 7th and 8th Avenue. It also covers Harlem and that central area, central Harlem, I guess you'd call it.
So I have a situation regarding safety on the trains. I'm not too sure, like, based on this information, would that be going to the precinct or going to the transit folks? Because I feel that recently I've noticed that in regards to safety, from my personal experience, it seems like NYPD is focusing more on fare invasions, which I understand. However, when it comes to evening commuters, I don't feel or see the same presence as morning commuters because, you know, New York City is 24 hours. Some folks start their shifts at 10 p.m. and they don't receive the same amount of safety as the folks who are commuting like 9 to 5 roles. So how do we break up the time when it comes to safety on the platform? Is there a specific time where transit decides we should put folks on the platform versus at a different hour? I'm just trying to understand, how do we distinguish which hours of the day would NYPD be more visibly active on the platform versus I guess the priorities of the train?
Okay, some of these questions are a little challenging because I'm not transit, so a lot of these questions I can't answer for you. But I know that we, like above level commands, we do have cops do 75 toms, which is they track train stations randomly throughout their tours, and they do that on all 3 tours for above ground. That's not transit.
All right, so I guess I'll ask my next question as more of a recommendation. So if I'm on the train at 10 p.m. and I'm on the train, on the ground, and someone decides to consume heroin or crack on the train, what is a pedestrian's ideal response to that kind of situation? That's not a liability to them, because if you're on the train, right, and somebody takes out a crack pipe, you're not supposed to be smoking on the platform, on the train, nowhere. So someone takes out a crack pipe. What is a regular pedestrian supposed to do inside of the train with no service, and people are not too comfortable transitioning from cart to cart to get to where the MTA worker would be? So any precinct, feel free to answer this question, because this is a situation that's happened many times for me and my loved ones, in which we on the train commuting to our evening jobs, like 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m. to start a shift, and people are consuming crack on the train, inside of the cart, not on the platform. So this is more like, give us your advice on how should someone approach that situation. Because honestly, as someone from Washington Heights, I refuse to be a bystander. So how can someone go about that situation?
Well,
Hi, let me answer this one. Hi, it is Captain Prato in the 3-4 precinct. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Look, I'll be straight up and as honest as I could be about this. I understand the fact that you don't want to be a bystander, right? But you have to, at that point, just weight your options, right? You said you have no service. So some of these the train carts, you might not be able to go through them, right? So the best thing for you to do at that point would be, if you do want to do something about it, just wait for the very next stop. You know, get off the train, go over to where the conductor is and report it, or try to see if you could find an officer either, you know, on the platform or on any of the adjacent cars. But for you to, I would not suggest to you to start taking pictures or videos, because like you just stated, if this person decides to get violent, now you don't have a way to, or a means to escape, and that becomes a problem. I hope, you know, that somewhat answers your question.
Yeah, I appreciate the tips, and that's honestly like the fair and like ethical thing to do. However, it's very concerning when folks are consuming drugs inside of the transitioning carts from station to station, and it's all within our district. So if I get on the train on 181st, someone starts to do crack on 168, by the time I get to 157, that smoke is already in the air, and you know, it's affecting other people's health. So that's the part that I just want every precinct to be aware that this is like legit happening, of these harsh drugs that could affect other people's health happening in transitioning trains. And by the time you get to the next stop, you know, there might not be an officer present and so on. So I just think it's like critical to assess these kind of situations, that if, let's say, if I'm in a situation like that and then I come forward like, hey, I don't want to be arrested because this is what was happening. I'm just pretty much like, just wanted to bring that up because I've seen it way too many times on the train, of the consumption on the car with children on board and whatnot. So it's just a very, very alarming. I was gonna say something, Barbara.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. First, the transit police are supposed to be at this public safety meeting, and they used to consistently come. So I really think we have to raise the question, and especially because transit is such a public safety issue at this time, why aren't they here? And I agree that the 33rd can't answer questions that are handled by the transit police. So transit is supposed to be here. On my other comment, and I really feel what you're saying, and especially if secondhand smoke is bad for you, secondhand crack is cosmic. If you remember, a couple days ago, a man was stabbed, I believe, on a Brooklyn train for asking a guy to turn down his loud radio. and the response of the guy was to stab him. So you cannot directly intervene in those situations. Wise advice from the captain, you've got to, bear it out, get off the car and seek help.
Is Eleazar still?
I don't see him, but he's.
I have a question statement follow-up to that, which is, Barbara, I appreciate you mentioning that transit's supposed to be here. I had asked about that in a previous meeting, and I think we should continue to follow up on that. Because I think it would be really helpful to come and have a presentation from the transit district about, what exactly their purview is and how it differs from our precincts who are so, studious in being here each time, which we appreciate. I think maybe they just need an invitation. So I personally, I'll follow up with Eleazar about that. And if need be, I'll follow up with the transit district myself to invite them because I would really like them to be here as well.
Yeah. Oh, I also wanted to comment that on the A train, that distance from 168th to 145th and then 125th to 59th can be some of the most neat, raw knuckle rides in the subway system. And that's all the more reason for transit to be all the more diligent, which is why I believe a lot of the drug use occurs on those lines, because there are those long intervals where there is no way out, so to speak. And so I think we have to really remind transit of that. They know that, but they know that once they leave 59th Street, there are long intervals of no intervention. And that's really unacceptable. It used to be in the 80s and 90s that there was a police officer that rode the train, and people who were up to nefarious activity would know that maybe 1 out of every 3 trains or something would have a police officer on it who would walk the train. And that discouraged taking your chance to do nefarious activity on the train. I think we need to get that back, where you had an officer walk the train.
Thank you, Barbara. I see Manny Gomez. Go ahead, Manny.
Hello.
Hello, Manny.
Hi, hello. My name is Manny from Catholic Charities Alianza La Plaza. I speak a little English, so I don't know si puedo hablar en español.
Depende para quién es tu pregunta.
Okay. The train.
Okay, toward precincts, or would Eliezer, would you like to translate? I mean, I could do my best to translate, but go ahead, Manny.
Okay. I have a community board from Catholic Charities Alianza La Plaza. I have 17 parents, and we have one meeting for 1 month, and we're talking to different situation in this community, Washington High. We're talking the situation in 181st Street. Hay padres que me han expuesto problemas donde en la mañana, a la hora que van a llevar los niños, when the kids going to the school, the people inyectándose droga, un desorden tremendo es lo que me han expuesto que ocurre y pasa ahí en 181st, entrada del tren. De igual manera en 181st tengo la situación de una madre que a las 5 de la mañana le pusieron un cuchillo en el cuello, la atracaron, le quitaron el teléfono, una situación difícil que ella vivió. So, dentro de las cosas que ellos decían para buscar solución era más presencia de la policía en 181st, 182nd, porque en verdad ellas dicen sentir miedo. Incluso muchas de ellas han pedido cambiar de trabajo debido a la situación como está actualmente 181st, 189. Es complicadito, es bien complicado. Entendemos la comunidad como está ahora mismo, pero la preocupación principalmente por los niños es muy, muy grande. Otro de los problemas también que ya han expuesto es muchos jóvenes a la hora de la salida para la escuela se ponen a retosar, a jugar mucho cerca de las vías de los trenes, perdón, esperando el tren se ponen a retosar, a jugar mucho y han visto situaciones de niños que madres que conocen los padres han tenido que ir y ayudarlo con los relajos. O sea, ustedes saben que a veces hay niños que comienzan a
Sí.
relajar con otro.
Una pregunta.
Ujú.
¿De cuál escuela tú te estás?
Can you answer or at least translate what he's saying? You answer the next question.
So this situation, since it's based out of 181st, it would be for the 34th precinct, correct? So, for a 34th precinct that's here present tonight, were you able to understand his concern?
Hi, good evening. This is Officer Navarrete, Community Affairs Officer of the 3-4. Yes, I understood his concern.
Okay. So, just for folks online, just to give you some context, Manny here, community member, is sharing a situation that has been occurring within the 181st train station close to a school in which there's a lot of presence of drug consumption, specifically injections. And that's alarming many of the parents in the area, as the students of the schools are young people of our neighborhood are witnessing this on their commutes to school. There was also another incident in which a mother around 5 a.m. was threatened. A knife was put against her and her phone was stolen. A lot of the parents in the community are saying that one of the solutions to help address this issue is more presence of the police. Many mothers are considering changing their jobs to leave the area just to avoid these kind of crimes happening to them. Also, on our platforms of the train after school, some of the young people, students are coming out and sort of tussling around near the platform. And there's been incidents in which parents have had to get in and break the children from tussling around and putting their hands on one another to avoid them possibly getting into the platform. So that's a little recap of what Manny has shared. Manny, ¿puedes seguir?
Ok, entonces, como les decía, dentro de lo que es nuestra reunión de Community Board, toca a Next Week. Nosotros exponemos todas esas situaciones y todas esas problemáticas. Somos de la escuela de 143 y Wills. Nos gustaría también participar de la reunión del precinto 34, si nos pudieran dejar saber cuándo es, ya que somos un Community Board activo, buscando solución también, trabajando por la comunidad y buscando solución tanto a los problemas no solo de los niños, sino también de nuestra gente a nuestro alrededor.
Gracias, Manny. So these concerns are specifically coming from the Wheels School. And if you know the neighborhood, you know it's inside a bigger public school. So within Wheels is also, you know, IS 143 and multiple schools with multiple grade levels in there. So their community meetings within their school, I'm assuming, is Parent Association. La Asociación de los Padres.
No, importante aclarar. Nosotros no pertenecemos a la escuela. Nosotros trabajamos con Catholic Charities y Alianza Dominicana. Tenemos un after school dentro de la escuela donde trabajamos con los padres, ayudamos a los niños y todo eso. Mi responsabilidad, mi trabajo es trabajar con los padres. Entonces tenemos un community board con los padres y miembros de la comunidad. Y entonces ahí es que nosotros tratamos tanto temas de la escuela como de la comunidad.
Gracias. So Manny is a part of Catholic Charities Alianza, is a organization that's been here in the neighborhood for many, many years. And within their organization, they have a community board, and his specific role is with parents and families. And within their community boards, that's where many of these issues are being discussed. And he would like to be involved more here with public safety to address these issues as well as the precinct's community meetings, because the precinct does host meetings of their own for community members. So Manny and his folks would like to be more familiar with those dates. That way they could participate and share their concerns on there as well. So our precincts, if there's any specific dates that we can share here for your next meeting, community-based meetings for community members to attend, please share those dates with us when you have them.
Hi, this is Officer Navarrete. Yes, in regards to the concerns that Manny was bringing up, I did have somebody from Alianza did reach out to me in regards to this same complaint in regards to drug usage on 181 Street. I did partner up with Special Operations Lieutenant of Transit District 3, who was made aware of this condition going on at that specific station. So what I would like to know, and I would partner up with Manny, because I know he has my phone number, as to what's the status. Are the parents continuously seeing this per previous conversation? Just so I can get the feedback back to Transit District 3. Also, Alianza is having their own meetings. I would like to partner up with Manny and get him in contact with Transit District 3 to maybe have someone present there for their meetings as well, and as well as for the Community Board 12. If you need to get in contact with somebody from Transit District 3 to be on this meeting, let me know. I can make that connection. But if Manny, I'm just going to repeat the same thing in Spanish for Manny, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, yeah.
Manny, yo recibí la misma queja sobre esto de unos padres de Alianza sobre lo que está pasando en la 181. Yo hablé con el teniente de Special Operations sobre esto y él sabe lo que está pasando ahí. Él me dijo que van a poner un poco más atención ahí, pero lo que yo quiero saber es que si esto continuamente está pasando, si sigue pasando, ha cambiado las cosas o no ha cambiado las cosas, para yo poder hablar con él y darle una respuesta en cómo lo están viendo ahora. Aparte de eso, usted dijo que va a haber una reunión con Catholic Charities y unos padres. Si usted quiere, yo le puedo hacer la conexión con el teniente, si quiere tener a alguien presente de Transit District del tren, ahí presente de su reunión.
Por supuesto, todos los meses, la segunda o tercera semana de cada mes, hacemos la reunión del Community Board de nosotros, by Zoom. Sería perfecto si estuvieran en la reunión, claro que sí, no hay ningún problema, con mucho gusto.
Una cosa más, nuestra reunión del precinto 34 que nosotros tenemos cada mes es el primer jueves del mes, pero este mes de enero, porque estaba muy cerca al año nuevo, va a ser este jueves 9 de enero a las 7 de la tarde en el precinto 34.
Perfecto, ya yo anteriormente había hablado con en la reunión del mes de diciembre, le había hablado también de esa reunión. Algunos padres sí están interesados en ir, yo voy a ir con ellos también. Sí, vamos a tratar de estar por ahí entonces para participar de la reunión.
Perfect. So one detail that I did not mention in English that I did mention to Manny in Spanish is that he mentioned the 3-4 precinct community council meeting. Our community council meetings are held the first Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. This month, because it's close to the holidays, we moved it up a week. So our next community council meeting will be this Thursday, January 9th at 7 p.m. at the 34th precinct.
Thank you. Manny, ¿tú cuándo es la próxima reunión de ustedes?
La próxima reunión de nosotros del Community Board es el 17, el viernes 17 de este mes, la próxima semana.
So, January 7th, ¿a qué hora?
6:30.
¿En la escuela o en?
No, lo hacemos por Zoom.
Okay. So the Catholic Charities Alianza's next community, their community board meeting is taking place January 17th. That's next week at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. Manny, si uno quiere participar en la reunión, ¿cómo uno lo puede hacer?
Me dejan saber a dónde yo le puedo enviar el link y yo lo mando y no hay ningún problema.
Si puedes, lo puedes poner en el chat y lo recibimos aquí.
Manny, tú tienes mi número de teléfono para ver si me lo puedes mandar y si nos comunicamos. So Manny, if you could please give me a call. You have my number to get me the link for the meeting.
No tengo el número.
Okay, no hay problema. Yo lo voy a poner en el chat, mi número de teléfono, so I'll put my phone number on the chat.
Ok, perfecto.
If anyone would like to join their community board meeting, the link is going to be available in the chat shortly. And I'll make sure that our office receives it. That way folks could receive it via email through our newsletter or anything like that that's shared.
I wanted to make a comment. Manny, you mentioned that there have been problems around the subway station, 181st, with the dismissal of the students. I assume this is because it's IS 43. I assume it's the number 1 station. The Wheels and the other schools that are in that buildings, they have to have a school safety plan as required by the union and the Department of Education. And the school leadership team has to formulate a school safety plan for between all the schools that operate in that building. Part of that safety plan has to be the dismissal procedure. And that includes the paraprofessionals and the aides covering the area around the dismissal of the school. I taught in one of the toughest schools in Brooklyn that had both Bloods and Crips attending the same school. And we had a dismissal procedure which was calm. We dispersed the students. They went home. At the subway station, nobody was allowed to linger. Everybody moved on. The aides and the paras were out there, along with the principal and assistant principal if necessary. And the precinct always had a car or someone who was also around at dismissal. That just simply has to be formulated as part of the school safety plan. And then the kids move on, they go home, everybody is fine. So you really have to connect to the school, and the principals have to be held to their responsibilities. It's required by law within the school. So I would get with that. The second comment, and I'm big time get with that. My other comment is, I suspect that some of this drug use is because of the safe needle distribution site at 179th by the park. And I think that the site there, if that's the case, has to be leaned on, that any needles that are distributed there must be used on site. And they can't be a take and go situation. That may be what's going on. But I think that we really have to, and the precinct has to pull in that site there and see what's going on. I suspect that may be a root cause of the increased drug use at the train station, and it's intolerable. But I would suggest the precinct contact that drug distribution, needle distribution, safe needle site, and really research their involvement in the increased drug use at the subway station. That's all. So you want to translate that for Manny?
I kind of think that is a little specific for their community board, and I that's a little bit too much for me to translate right now. I'm sorry, that's a little overwhelming. That was a lot of information, and I think that is very helpful, but it's very specific to Manny's situation regarding the school safety plan, and I think is a great information to share specifically to the school? Because I guess that information is very detailed and specific.
Well, someone in that loop is not doing their job. That's the bottom line. There has to be a school safety plan that's implemented, that's not being implemented.
He did share the Zoom link in the chat. So I think that as community board members, I think it will be very good if we can share that information with their community board during their meeting. So it's there on the chat.
Mhm.
All right, thank you so much, Barbara. Manny, were you able to get some of the information that Barbara shared?
Yes, I got it. I have the note here. So that's fine. And thank you for the information. I passed to the parents.
Thank you. All right. So up next, we're moving on to our 34 precinct reports. I know the 34th was here tonight, so the floor is yours when you're ready.
Hi. Good evening again. Happy New Year. Hope everyone's had a good New Year. Hope everyone will have 2025 be better than 2024. So if I can start, I'm going to start with some numbers for our crime statistics for a 28-day period. Oh, well, before that, I'm sorry. Last year, 2024, we ended 2024 with we were down 1.2% in crime versus 2023. And that was how we ended 2024. So we did well. We were under. Now for the last 28-day period, we were down in robberies 21%. We were down felony assault 28%, burglaries 27% down, grand larcenies we were down 20%, grand larceny autos were down 38%. We were up in the category of rape by 1, 2 versus 1. It was not a stranger rape. Overall, the 28-day period, we were down 24.6% compared to last year on this time. I do have one other thing to share. We did have a fire on Bennett Avenue, where unfortunately we had one person that was deceased, and it was in regards to a space heater. So if we could just remind everyone, remind our friends, neighbors, family, that space heaters can be very dangerous. Also, if you are having problems with your landlord, please make sure you can contact us. You can contact your local electeds, which they can help you if you don't have already a tenant association, help you build one. And just be aware during this time that it's very cold with space heaters. I did share earlier the community council meeting for this month, again, this Thursday, the 9th at 7 p.m. at the 3-4 precinct. Does anyone have any questions?
What happened about the roosters on Arden Street?
Am I still on?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if this froze, but I couldn't hear if anybody had a question.
Barbara asked about the roosters on Arden Street, which I'd actually like to know about as well, because it came up at Health and Environment earlier this week. Well, last week.
Well, that's not, he doing well anyway, so.
Okay, so the question was in regards to the rooster on Arden Street. I don't have any updates as of yet. I do know that Vice is aware of the situation, but I don't know the status.
You said who is aware? Sorry.
our vice unit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I see we have a hand from Peter Reeves.
Yeah, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi. Hey, how you guys doing? This is my first time attending this meeting. I've been attending the traffic and transportation meetings for the past 2 months. So I just wanted to mention something that I've been dealing with here in Inwood. I live on Academy Street, and we have this recurring issue where cars during ASP are driving directly onto the sidewalk with all four wheels. Now, I have reported this to DSNY, and they have said that this is not their problem, which I technically understand because they're not impeding the street sweeper once they are on the sidewalk. However, when I do have communications with a detective at the 34th, and I just texted him because I have another concern I'm texting him about, and he informed me that that issue is not NYPD's problem, but it is DSNY's. So I'm basically getting conflicting information, and I just figured this would be the best channel for me to come and talk about my issue with that. So like I have evidence of this. I have multiple videos. It's not a one-off issue. Obviously, it does not happen every single week for ASP, but I have at least 6 or 7 videos of this happening. And obviously, it's dangerous. Cars should not be on the sidewalk. Kids can be going to school at that time. Elderly people, like, there's just a million reasons to not be on the sidewalk, obviously. So I just wanted to raise that concern and ask what to do about it.
Hi, Peter. This is Officer Navarrete. Can you please be a little bit more specific? Are the vehicles parked on the sidewalk? Are they driving on the sidewalk?
No. So, I mean, for ASP, most people in this neighborhood and most of New York, they will just wait in their cars until the street sweeper comes. And then, unlike, I hate to use crude language, but unlike a normal person that will just drive into the middle of the street to let the street sweeper drive past, they reverse and drive directly onto the sidewalk with all four wheels.
Okay. Can you please tell me between what street and what street on Academy?
Yeah, sure. I live on Academy between Seaman and Broadway. This particular incident always seems to happen between Seaman and Cooper specifically. And ASP is on Mondays and Tuesdays.
Mondays and Tuesdays. Okay.
Right. Now, my issue is that, like, obviously it's unrealistic for you guys to come out every single ASP. And like I said, this does not happen every single week. But I have videos with the license plates in clear view of the same offender doing this over and over. And because, as you know, once someone starts doing something illegal and they see they don't get fined or ticketed or any, repercussions for it, there have now been other vehicles every now and then doing the same thing. So it's like it's starting to become a growing problem. And then as a side note to that, there's increased brazenness with cars just not moving at all for ASP. I recognize that's not you, that's DSNY, but I just wanted to throw that in as well, just to be on the record.
Correct. That part would be DSNY. However, as you mentioned, we cannot be there all the time, but we can pay special attention to that area during those times on Mondays and Tuesdays. And as you mentioned, there's no reason for you to be on the sidewalk, the full car. You're not allowed to drive on the sidewalk. There can be kids, pedestrians, and it's not safe. So there's 100% tickets can be issued. And if they are driving recklessly, then they may be arrested, or they can be arrested. So I will pass this information along to see if a study sector or maybe an NTO can pass by, or even the traffic unit during this time. And just to verify, you said Academy Street between Seaman and Cooper, where it's mostly happening, and it's Mondays and Tuesdays.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Peter.
And if I may, while I am hogging everyone's time here, since like I mentioned, I'm on the Traffic and Transportation Board. The past 2 months now, they've mentioned and again, I'm very green to all of this, so I apologize if I'm not using the correct terminology or whatever. They mentioned that at one point there used to be traffic officers that would attend the traffic and transportation meetings, and the chair, and I apologize for putting words in his mouth, and he can correct me, Leo Jimenez can correct me if I'm wrong about this. He said that he has reached out to try and get the NYPD traffic unit to participate in the meetings, and they don't seem to. So I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up as a concern. The meetings are on the first Mondays of the month at 7 to 9. So I don't know if that's if I'm even talking about the right thing or not, but I think that the board would greatly appreciate if there's participation from the NYPD, because very frequently I hear over and over about like people complaining about lack of enforcement. So I think if the NYPD is there to hear those complaints, then there can maybe be more cooperation and understanding between, you know, everything that's going on, because there's a lot of moving parts.
Peter, just a question for clarification. You're talking about having NYPD attend the traffic and transportation meetings of Community Board 12's traffic and transportation committee meetings. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. I've been informed, or it is my understanding, I should say, that at one point at a time or every now and then there is a traffic. I believe it's my understanding that NYPD has a traffic enforcement unit, and they would attend the traffic and transportation board meetings every now and then. So I'm basically just here just asking if that's something that we can, you know, through you know, everyone attending here, like potentially get that to happen so that you know, we can see some progress on the issues that are brought up at that board meeting.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, we're also looking to have transit police come to our committee as well, so I guess that's something that's prevalent.
Well, is sorry, again, I'm not aware. I know transit's a different thing, but it's my understanding that traffic enforcement is part of the 34 and the 33. Is that incorrect? I really don't know. I'm just asking for my own edification.
Hi, yes, that is correct. We have a traffic safety unit in the 34th precinct. And in regards to your concern and your request to have somebody from the traffic team attend one of these meetings, I'll bring this up to our traffic sergeant. And if you're able to, my phone number and my email address is on this chat. If you were able to either send me an email or a text message with the information so I can forward it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sorry. Do you want my phone number and email, or?
No, I have mine. If you can get just maybe email me the date and time of this meeting, and I'll forward it to the traffic sergeant to see if he can have either himself or somebody from his team join the meeting.
Sure. I'm sorry. I just don't know where your phone and email is. I don't see it anywhere.
Put it.
I can't see anything other than what I've written in the chat, actually. I don't know if that's some setting you guys have to change, or.
Our Zoom function is a little tricky. If you're not a panelist, I don't know that you can see the chat necessarily. So we'll figure out a way to get that information to you. But Officer Navarrete, I think we're specifically speaking about the Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting of this board. And so that's usually the first Monday of the month at 7 p.m.
Yeah, that is correct.
All right, yeah, I can look that up. That's not a problem.
I just got the information. Thank you very much.
Okay, Peter.
Also, can I just say one thing to you? Dear chair in this meeting, so I gotta respect your time, but Peter, I just want to say thank you for coming and talking about this, and just to express a sentiment that, you know, it's very difficult sometimes when you bring up an issue and you're told, oh, that's DSNY's problem, that's NYPD's problem, that's traffic's problem. And so I just want to, you know, give you some reassurance there that it's heard that that's very frustrating to deal with, but you're doing all the right things by being here and by reporting this, because until these issues are brought to the attention of our NYPD officers who are here at this meeting and to our attention, like there's only so much that can be done. So thank you for doing the right thing, and I'm sorry that it is a frustrating system to navigate.
That's all right. I appreciate everyone's time here. So thanks again.
Thanks, Peter. Do we have any other questions for the 34th precinct?
Yeah, I had a brief comment. I wanted to make a suggestion. The 34th had done an initiative of trying to reduce grand theft auto by getting people to not leave their keys in the car. And I think that you've seen a decline in grand theft auto, both in the 33rd and 34th. It was a very good initiative. If you take Facebook as a barometer of what's going on, not necessarily true, but there's a lot, especially on Cabrini and on Seaman and on Indian Hill Road and Isham, especially Isham. A lot of cars are getting their tires stolen. And people come up in the morning and what they see are axles instead of tires. And I'm not very good about cars, but isn't there something where you can put locks on the tires or on the axles, which makes it very hard to remove tires? And if that's the case, could you start a crime prevention thing where you could be urging people on how to get these devices put on their tires? To reduce this easy hit crime? Because I think you're aware, it may be that people aren't even reporting it to the 34th, but if you look on Facebook, it's happening 2-3 times a day, I think. That's all.
Yeah, so they are finding, or they have found ways to defeat most of the locks. However, there are tips to adjust your wheel at a certain way on the vehicle to slow them down. These are very difficult. This is a very difficult crime to catch them in the act and be able to arrest them. So for these types of crimes, we are trying to narrow down corridors, as you mentioned, but as well as we just asking help from the public to, if they hear something at night, because usually it's at night or early in the morning, to please call 911 for us to respond and to get them. These are very professional, I'd say, people who are in and out in within a minute, and taking all 4 tires. So again, it's very difficult to catch them doing it, but it's challenging. It is challenging. Our crime prevention officers do hand out flyers in regards to those tips. We can have them print out more flyers and leave them at vehicle windshields to make the residents more aware, as you mentioned, Barbara. So thank you.
Sweet. Thank you, 34th precinct. Officer Navarre, I appreciate it. So do we have any other questions for the 34th precinct? I see we have some of our board members online. So we have questions. All right, I don't see any questions. Do we have Edgecombe transitioning facility now with new name? I got it right. Edgecombe is not with us tonight. Neither is FDNY. So I guess if we don't have any other questions, we're calling it a night.
Old business, new business.
Any old business, new business? Let's see.
Well, we had discussed at our previous meeting, 2 things. One was potentially developing a resolution supporting the FDNY about having, demanding that lithium batteries, be of the, UL quality. And we were going to supposedly get that researched. And we haven't really moved on that. That they not be these off-market lithium batteries, remember? And we've not worked on that. And also I had brought up the idea of allowing in the 33rd and the 34th had both been in approval of this, of allowing the police departments to have boots to put on cars that were either stolen or had expired illegal paper plates, or had excessive fines on them, because it turns out, if you remember, only a private company is doing that. It's resourced out to a private company. And given that congestion pricing has now kicked in, which may be affecting the parking situation in Upper Manhattan, I think it's imperative that we do everything possible to make sure that the parking that is available to our legitimate residents. So what do people think? I mean, should we work on that? What do you think?
I remember us mentioning the batteries sometime last year.
Mhm.
We never worked on a resolution. So I think we should definitely agree with that. Like work on something for sure.
Mhm.
I'm sorry if I may talk about, I believe you're mentioning resident parking permits.
Well, we'd never done a resolution in support of it. We really need the committee to discuss it. But we'd also discuss, when a boot gets put on a car that you can't drive it, the police department, the 33rd and 34th told us, because I said, why don't you put a boot on a car when it's clearly stolen, or these illegal expired paper plates? And they said, well, we don't have them. It's a private company that it's been contracted out to. And we were very surprised about that. And I said, well, would you want to be able to do that? And they said, sure, but they'd have to allocate funds for us and, training or whatever. And so I'm in favor of that. And I'd want to know if the committee would be, and then take it to the board as a whole. And maybe possibly other community boards would. And that would do a lot to alleviate a lot of the problems that have developed about cars in the city, illegal cars in the city.
Would you like to start a resolution for us, Barbara, and then we can add to it and make any changes to it for next month?
Well, I
'Cause I'm
think,
not aware of any resolution that we've created at this time.
yeah, I just think that I need more input. Like, how do people feel do people like the idea of the 33rd and 34th? I would want it limited. I don't think that the 33rd and 34th should just go around booting any car. I think it should be limited for certain situations, which would be, in my mind, it would be for stolen cars that they can identify as stolen, which is generally that the license plate does not match the car. Or it would be for ones where they have these known expired or illegal paper plates, or where there's excessive fines over a certain dollar amount. In other words,
I thought we were talking about specifically a resolution for the lithium batteries.
okay, all right. Well, for one or both. But I'm saying, if the idea of having the precincts being able to boot cars just for those specific targeted offenses or irregularities. For the lithium batteries, I think we have to know more, and I think we should have the office get from the FDNY exactly what kind of batteries are causing them trouble, and also what kind of batteries would be acceptable. And also, I believe there was some discussion in the city about there would be charging stations for batteries. I mean, that's something that the office should research for us and get us some information from the FDNY.
Barbara, I have a quick question. Erwin speaking here. What were the 3 situations that you recommended cops may either the 3-4 and the NYPD may boot a car?
Well, one would be if they can identify the car as stolen. And generally, they are generally able to identify a car as stolen when it has a plate that doesn't match the car. In other words, there's a plate on there that, the plate would be either a plate that's like kind of fictitious, or, the plate was supposedly be for a Honda, but the car is a Chevy or something. In other words, kind of a made up plate. That's where they're able to identify that. And then the other, So
Sorry.
that they're trained in how to identify that stuff. Then the other would be for these expired and sort of fictitious paper plates that are on cars. And then the other would be if fines are over a certain amount. And I think the amount that they're able to, these private firms are able to boot cars for is too low. I think it's like $300, which I think is nothing. I think it should be for a much higher amount because it's very easy to run up fines of like $300. I would think it should be more like $500-600 at least, before you would, put a boot on somebody's car. I think we should research exactly how much fines go for, because fines increase after 30 days. So for excessive fines, but I think we should look at what we would think would be, excessive, not excessive, but long overdue high level of fines. There are people, policemen in the 34th have told me how they'll put a ticket on a car and a guy will just laugh in their face. Haha, so what? I never pay him. Ha ha. And if you look under like fines, there's people that'll have like $800, $900, $1,000 in fines, and they just laugh them off. They don't care. So that's a problem. That's a problem. So
the 3-4 and 3-3 still.
Yeah, okay. The 3-4 is still here.
Joseph, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Quick question. All right. So I know they're already trained in NYPD is already trained, as Barbara said, in figuring out which cars' licenses do not match the vehicle. How about the expired paper plates? How do you go about figuring that out? Is there a method, or you kind of just got to go car by car?
It says it on the plate.
For the expired paper plates, if they are expired, if it's New York, we're able to tell, but we don't have access to New Jersey system, even though it's next door. So we don't know if maybe they have displayed an expired tag, but have one actually that's current. So it's a little bit more difficult. It would be easier in the other explanation that Barbara mentioned as to whether or not it's stolen, because then we could check the VIN. In the event that the license plate doesn't match for that vehicle, then we could check the VIN. If the VIN it does come up stolen. However, if that vehicle is stolen, we don't keep it there. There's certain procedures that we have only because it is somebody's property that they are looking for, that they got stolen. So eventually we want to get it back to them. So at there, the boot, I don't think would be feasible for that. But maybe for those unregistered vehicles that are out there that we're unable to tow right then and there because we don't have tow available. So I to that point, Barbara, I think that I understand where you're coming from there. Yeah, that's as much as I got from that.
Just for clarification, the goal for the resolution would be to allow NYPD to boot certain cars in the neighborhood.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That the precinct would be allowed to, yes. Mm-hmm.
More broadly, it would have to work with the city to say like NYPD, as a whole, rather than just individual precincts. But yeah.
And there has to be like a budget for that as well.
Right.
Because the boot comes at a certain cost, Who really gives boots in New York City? Is that transit for folks
She was mentioning it's a private company.
Oh, it's private.
I'm just concerned that it might create there might be a staffing issue. Like if there's a whole bunch of people like cops running around looking at each car's expired paper plate to determine whether it's expired or not. And then looking around to see, if the fines are over that certain limit, while all these other things that we discussed earlier in this meeting, regarding the train stations and this, I'm not saying they're not all worth, maybe they did have different, values, or maybe they all have equal value. It's just maybe the staffing, I don't know. But it's still, I think it's worth the research. Definitely the batteries,
Yeah. I wanted to follow up on the batteries.
you would want
I don't want to detract from the booting conversation though.
to, okay, yeah.
Well,
Um,
the police officers on patrol, when they're in the squad cars and they do patrols, especially later at night, they do go along the streets and check license plates. They have license plate scanners and they do routinely do that. That's, yeah, when they have the time and so forth, they do routinely do that. It
Okay,
would
so
just be, yeah.
in the process of that. Makes
In the
sense.
process of that, exactly. It's not adding an extra thing, it's in the process of that.
I have a question, Barbara. Would it be possible maybe exploring having the NYPD traffic, which is the civilian, not police officers, but the traffic, the ones that issue summonses, maybe they could be tasked that instead of patrol officers. Would that be something, maybe to think about?
Well, I think that that's something for the NYPD to think about. We don't run the NYPD. This would just be a way of, rather than a private company, this would just be a way to help the NYPD operate more efficiently. Because I know it's a frustration for NYPD officers to like drive down the street and see, cars that are clearly not kosher, so to speak, and not being really able to do something about it on the spot, So that's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you, Barbara. I thought you meant specifically NYPD, like patrol officers, but you were referring to the NYPD in general.
Yeah, and what would be the best way to do it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
It could be patrol officers, it could be transit, it could be whatever would be the best way, but I don't think having it resourced out to a private company is the best way to solely do it. I mean, they're not the boots on the ground all the time. They're not the people who know the neighborhood. They're not the ones that, spot the cars all the time, And there's been such a proliferation in the last couple of years of these unregistered cars and expired paper plate cars and such. It's really been a ballooning problem.
But
So
maybe it could be a partnership with the NYPD and these private companies. Since the NYPD receives the data, they have the intel pertaining to stolen cars, the description, license plates and whatnot. They can share specific information that doesn't exceed their rules or protocols, whatever the case may be, to then have these private companies boot the cars that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, I guess. Rather than adding more to the workload of the NYPD. Because that has been brought up a couple of times, is the precincts facing understaffing issues, or where there's other prevalent issues across the city. Our precincts are affected when the officers from our precincts have to go address something else in the city. So maybe we can discuss more in depth, like a possible partnership, or just a little bit more in depth.
Well, I think we should ask the 33rd, when I brought it up before to the 33rd and 34th, they seemed to like the idea. The captains, they said, oh, sure, yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think there's kind of the best judge of that. The time it takes to write a ticket is about the same amount of time it takes to like boot a car. It's not adding a heavy workload.
Batteries.
Yeah.
On the battery discussion briefly, I think, often I find that a way forward, rather than having to say, here's all the things that we should do, is to look at what's going on at the city council level, at the state level, and at the congressional level, the US congressional level, to say, are there, pending resolutions and local laws that we may want to support. And so at a quick glance, it does seem like there are several things on the floor for the city council's agenda this year, including a a resolution asking Congress to set consumer safety standards for lithium ion batteries. And there's a local law to amend the city fire code in relation to penalties for the possession, sale, lease, rental, etc. of unsafe batteries. So what I'm getting at here is I think it maybe is worth a resolution around all of these various items to say like, hey, this is we support this. We want the city council to move forward with this. We want Congress to move forward with this, whatever that looks like. And so I'd be happy to put together some verbiage for our next meeting if we want to just, you know, tack on to what's already out there and say this is worth supporting. Then I will bring a draft in February.
Talking about resolutions, I think another one that we could add to our pool of, excuse me, of in the works, is definitely something in support of, street vendors. Since the last meeting, we spoke somewhat about those situations and city council, specifically our city councilwoman here, her stance, and now, what's going on with transit and so on, like what does safety, public safety look like in regards to our vendors? So that's something that requires research and also, you know, conversation, so we can know how to protect our vendors in a way that their businesses are legitimate business and are not going against the rules of the cities. That way we can prevent our business owners dealing with their things getting taken away by the NYPD due to the law that applies. So I think that's another one that, so I would like to add that too, you know, just for the record. All right.
Sorry, can I ask about something else, if that's okay?
Go ahead, Peter.
Have there been any discussions in this board about the Intro 80 bill? Is anyone aware of what that bill is?
Sorry, Intro 80?
Correct, Intro 80.
What's that?
Okay, I'll do a very, very quick thing because I know we're running late or whatever, but it's the illegal parking bounty bill. So if you guys are not aware, there is a bill that is, or it's not a bill, it's now a law. There is a system for citizens to report trucks that are idling on the street. There is you record a timestamp video. If they're idling for more than 1 minute, you can report them, and the citizen gets, if the complaint is valid and everything, and it's all verified, they get a cut of that ticket that is issued, and then eventually paid by the company or whatever that was doing the idling, right? So that's something that's already happened. So they're trying to now, because of the success of that program, they're trying to do Intro 80, which is an illegal parking bounty bill, which I know is an issue that plagues this neighborhood greatly. So basically, it would just enable citizens, if you see someone parking illegally, meaning like if they're in a bike lane, if they're in a bus lane, if they're parked in a crosswalk, on sidewalks, or they're blocking daylighting, if we daylight any intersections here, the citizens can, you know, use the 311 platform and report it in a fair way, right? It's filming a video. It's you know, it's not controversial, right? You can't really doctor a video that's being recorded quite like that. And like we just discussed, the cops can't be everywhere. So it's something that just like it generally improves safety, right? Because like if someone's parked in the sidewalk, it limits visibility, or like if they're parked in a crosswalk, etc. So I was just wondering if that's been discussed, if that maybe needs a bigger discussion to add it to, you know, the agenda for next month, perhaps, and you know, maybe even to like write a resolution to try and get Carmen De La Rosa to support it. So just for further context, I think most of the other council members of Manhattan specifically have signed on to this bill, and I think only council member 7 and council member 10, which is Carmen De La Rosa, have not signed on yet. Don't hold me to that. I'm not 100% sure, but the last time I checked, I'm pretty sure that's accurate. So anyway, I just wanted to like throw that information out there to see what could happen.
That's great. Thanks, Peter. I just looked that up. I'm taking our minutes here, so my face is usually in my computer, but I also tend to look things up in real time if I can. I was not aware of that. I believe, yeah, no, I think everything you said is accurate as far as I can tell just from reading this real quickly. It's really interesting, and I wasn't aware of it before. I mean, on the face of it, I think I would be willing to entertain something supporting that as well. If we are able to put together a resolution around it.
Yeah, like from a glance, it's kind of tricky with just the congestion of this neighborhood. And when in situations I've been in and I've seen like families double parking, it's like people loading up or people waiting on someone. These kind of things are very community specific, and I'm not necessarily sure how this bill is applicable to the challenges we face uptown. So definitely something that we could look more into to see.
Yeah, maybe a broader.
I don't believe double parking is part of it, just to add that. I don't think that was one of the parts of the law, but we can obviously check that.
Well, I think that's a good point too, that like, it's good for us to make sure we know exactly what
Yeah.
The
is
thing
encompassed
is,
with the law.
many of the avenues and streets that one was able to double park in this neighborhood, were now turned into streets that have bike lanes. So while it may not include double parking, these vehicles may now use that as double parking, which I'm not saying is necessarily correct, but I see the point that she's making, because it may create an issue for a neighborhood specific issue. Not necessarily that I'm saying we're opposed or I'm opposed to it at the city level, but it's something that I think it should have more of a larger discussion, and more people should be included before moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I'm only mentioning it to raise visibility to the issue because, I actually don't 100% agree about this being neighborhood specific, right? Like this is just me personally talking, like we're part of Manhattan, we're part of New York City. I don't view myself as any different than someone who lives on the Upper West Side, Lower East Side. It doesn't matter. We're all New Yorkers. We should all abide by the same laws and everything. So like, that's just my perspective on it. Obviously, huge discussion, whatever. But yeah, no, my primary purpose was really just to raise visibility to it, to have, like you just mentioned, a larger talk about it.
Thank you.
Definitely. I think it's worth a bit.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it briefly now, and I see something that mentioned it pretty much where civilians get to report when people are violating and creating restrictions for transportation. But I don't, this is still not, we're not going too in depth about it, but it also applies like, what about if it's a city agency car that's creating the block?
Well, I mean, sorry, just to humor that, right? Like when you film it, you have to film the license plate and everything. And if it is a city agency car, like any 311 report, when it gets verified, they're like, oh, that's a city agency car based on the location that it's parked and everything, right? So no ticket gets issued for that.
So then the civilian loses on the $175 that they wanted.
No, they don't get the whole ticket, of course, right? They only get a small portion of it. But the same thing happens with the current truck idling law. So like trucks like Fresh Direct, refrigerated trucks are exempt from this law, right? Because the truck needs to keep running to keep the produce and goods at the correct temperature. So like, even if someone does report this truck errantly, they will not issue a ticket to the truck. It does not automatically issue a ticket. It just allows the ticket to eventually be issued if it is found to be valid.
Yeah, thanks for raising it, because now I'm thinking a little bit more in depth, and we don't have to go too deep into this, but if placed in a historical context, it's interesting because it has like civilians being pinned on to some degree, given the force to police other civilians.
Yeah, I mean, if you have been, I'm sure anyone that owns a car has eventually at one point or another, unfortunately, parked in front of a fire hydrant. You might have a second thought of that if you know that any person that's walking down the block, knowing that they can get a monetary reward for that, that might change behavior significantly of people that are doing these illegal parking practices, right? And while I agree with you, like, on some not high traffic block, if someone double parks in a bike lane, that's not 100% right. But then you go down to some major avenue or street like 207th or Broadway or Dykeman. I live in Inwood, so like that's what I'm more familiar with. But like those streets have insane double parking. It blocks bus routes. It blocks emergency vehicles. So like we're not talking about just improving the lives of the citizens that are reporting it financially, but we're talking about, potentially saving lives, having firefighters and policemen get to, urgent situations faster, saving people's lives and all that. So like that aspect of it is why I bring it up as well in the public safety meeting.
Got it.
Thank you, Peter. Do we have any old business, new business, or announcements we want to add?
I just want to say thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Peter, for joining us tonight. All right.
You want to do it, Aaron?
Yeah, we're calling it a night. Calling this meeting motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
Yes. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a safe night.